So would love to hear a little bit more about, I know we had talked about kind of marketing versus advertising and talking a little bit more about what those industries look like and what those industries look like and professions look like at Dentsu specifically.
Yeah, okay, great. So I think this would be a good point, I think, and this'll probably take a while, but I think if somebody like myself is talking to you guys, and you guys are in high school, I think for the most part, when I was in high school, I had no idea like about the career of advertising, and I really didn't know what media was, which is the sector of advertising that I work in. And even when I went to college, it was interesting. There were advertising classes. There weren't a lot of them, and there wasn't a lot of media classes. And it was a career that I had to learn about kind of when I got out of college. So what I try to do is have, discussions like this with young people as often as possible, because I want you all to know that it exists and that there are so many interesting parts of it, especially today, that it's something you could think about and aspire to as you think about what, you might want to do as you move through your life and get a little bit older. So as I said, I'm in the media business, which is a sort of part of the marketing and advertising ecosystem. So if you're Coca-Cola or if you are American Express, you have got so many points with which your customers might interact with your product or your brand. That can be on the shelves at a store. There are agencies that support that called shopper marketing agencies. That could be in an e-commerce experience where you're buying the product online. Maybe it's on the Coke.com website, or maybe you're signing up for the card on American Express's website. It could be an app that you use of theirs. There are companies that build those interactive experiences that they're generally called consumer experience services companies. And then there's the advertising. There's the advertising that you all come into to experience pretty much throughout your everyday, whether you're watching something on television, which most folks your age are doing a lot less of than the folks than I did when I was your age, or if you're on Facebook, or if you're on Snapchat, or if you're on Insta or TikTok, you're coming across advertisements in those environments. You may see billboards. Advertising has taken so many forms. There are so many different channels with which a marketer might be able to connect and reach you. And that's the sector that I'm involved in. So if you think about advertising broadly, and this is the advertising part, in two big buckets. There's the development of the creative, which is the idea, the way that there might be a jingle in a commercial, or there might be a visual way that a brand presents themselves to you, or there might be a tagline that helps you understand what value it is that they think they are providing to you as a customer. That's the creative side. There's a whole area of function and discipline within advertising that very creative people who love coming up with ideas. They like somewhat unstructured environments. They tend to want to be out there in culture and in the world and learning about things, and they're kind of okay with a little bit of I would say uncertainty, or again less structure, because what we find in the creative side of advertising is those creative environments, they foster an environment that allow people to think and their best ideas come forward. And that isn't always sitting at a desk. That might be people playing ping pong with each other. That might be people playing video games and just thinking about something that they want to do for a brand. Advertising agencies create all sorts of really interesting and fun environments for creatives to think about the best way for a brand to express themselves. And for some of you, that might be super appealing. And if it is, I would absolutely advise you to look into the creative side of advertising in the advertising world. What a lot of people don't, that's sort of the sector that I think most people think of as advertising. But there is an entirely other sector inside of the advertising ecosystem, and one that has grown to be almost one of the largest sectors inside of advertising, and that is the media sector. And media refers to any connection point with which we might find a way to integrate an advertising message so that you come across it. And I mentioned some of the places you might come across advertising. They're everywhere. And in some cases, they're not anywhere. Like if you're watching Netflix, for example, that's an ad-free environment. And that's something that in the media world is something that we all have to think about working around sometimes, because there are more and more places that are coming up that people will sometimes pay for their entertainment. They're not supported by advertising, and they're becoming a bigger part of everybody's day. And so marketers have to think of other ways of getting their message across. And there's like, just think about the last time you watched a Netflix show and you saw somebody pull out a certain kind of soda or a candy bar, or even you saw a car that the character was driving that was really prominently placed in a Netflix show. You can bet that something has gone on in terms of some kind of agreement between the producers of that show and the maker of that product, where they have found a way to support the production of the show and get that placed front and center into the program. That's called product placement or product integration. Very interesting part of what we do. But the media sector is very, very big. It's everything from working with television networks to magazines, those magazines that still exist today, to websites, to social platforms. We call it, like, most of the places you go to consume content, whether it's a TV network or if it's a connected TV app like Hulu, or if it's a magazine or the website of that magazine, we call those publishers. They're publishers because they publish content, and they are also publishing advertising that supports the content. And then there's platforms. There are social platforms like Snapchat or Facebook or TikTok, et cetera, that we work with also. Google, when you go to search for something, or YouTube, when you're watching a video on YouTube. These are all platforms that also have content, but the content isn't necessarily published by the platform. It's just a platform that allows people to upload and add their own content. Very, very interesting. So this area is called the media business, and our job at a media agency is pretty varied. So let's just say we're working with American Express or BMW or General Motors. Our job at a media agency is to, number one, we do a whole lot of research for that company to determine who is their most valuable potential target customer. Who is the customer that would be most interested in the product that they offer or the services that they offer? And, whereas in the old days, that used to be a lot of survey-based research, today there is so much data out there provided by pretty much every digital platform you interact with. We have that area of research has been built into a massive data science capability in the media business that really didn't exist a decade ago. And it's a really cool opportunity for folks like you, if analytics or numbers or solving problems is something that's of interest to you. We generally will pour through that data and not only identify who these people are that we are trying to reach and place advertising in front of, but then we'll develop some insights about that consumer. What is it that group of consumers or that individual is most interested in? What is it about their lifestyle or their day-to-day activities that would allow us an opportunity to integrate ourselves into that world, and maybe not only just get in front of them, which is kind of an interruptive, that's sort of an old school interruptive advertising model. Most marketers today are trying to integrate themselves into your day-to-day life in a way that hopefully adds some value. And, it's more of a consumer first world than it is an advertiser first world. So insight about who you guys are and what you love and what you do for entertainment and what you do to gather information and what you do to interact with your friends, and all of this stuff is pulled together to understand the consumer and allow us to think about the best possible way to place our message and the message that we even provide to you about the brand itself. We then would go into taking those insights, and we have to build out sort of we have to build out a kind of a communications plan. A communications plan, which probably makes no sense to you guys, is basically a map. The communications plan says, okay, this advertiser has this amount of money that they have allocated towards communicating with consumers in whatever way. They don't exactly know what they should be doing with it. We will architect a plan for them that explains, based on all of those consumer insights that we have gathered, whether they should be thinking about placing their message in a video environment, in an audio environment, whether they should be thinking about creating interesting content, like maybe partnering up with some of the influencers that you guys see on TikTok to create some kind of interesting interaction that, again, would provide value in your life, and you would maybe appreciate the brand for helping bring that experience to you. The social space, the mobile space, at a home, even when you go and search for something, that's an advertising meeting. When you type in some words in a search box and you're looking for something, that list of search opportunities, you might notice that the first three of them, they say advertisement, because that a company paid based on the word that you dropped into the search box to have their link to whatever they wanted to sell to you placed first, second, third in that list. And then, of course, there'll be a whole bunch of other search results that won't have the word advertisement next to them, and we call that organic search. That's just coming up based on the term that you put in. So we will craft this, we'll architect this plan, and we'll bring that to the client and explain to them, okay, this is where we think, you should place all of the advertising. And we have a really, really in-depth discussion about that. And a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth with clients and trying to determine what is just the most perfect and optimal way for them to spend every one of those dollars. And eventually we get to a point where they go, okay, let's go do it. And that's called us getting the approval to execute. And again, as their media agency, we're very involved in that upfront strategic part where you actually map out the whole communications plan, but we also implement it. We also go out and we place that advertising across the entire media ecosystem. So that means that we will talk to Google and we will say, okay, we would like to place some 6-second ads or some 30-second ads within a selection of influencer-based content on your platform, and why don't you help us identify the best possible personalities or channels that would allow us to speak to this kind of a target audience, or we're bringing our own data to inform that. We'll have a conversation with NBC or Disney or ESPN about the same thing, and we're talking about the different programs within which we might place that advertising, and we'd have a conversation with company like Condé Nast, who creates magazines like Vogue or Esquire. Like they're publishing companies. And we'll also talk to Facebook and Snap and TikTok. And we work with all of them to get that advertising out and placed so that as you're going through your daily routine, the advertising is starting to show up. And then we also work with those media partners to create all sorts of ways. Our number one job is to make sure that you notice that advertising. Everyone's trying to skip it. The goal is to skip it if you're the consumer, and we get that. And our intent is not to try to stop you from skipping through some technology that doesn't allow you to do it, because we feel that that's not a good experience for you. Our goal is to try to convince you through the relevance that we create with the way that we place the advertising, the place that we place the advertising, and the way that we're speaking to you, to somehow get to earn your attention and allow you to buy something from the company. And that's really what we call a customer first approach, which is we're not trying to interrupt anybody's day. We're trying to add value to your day. And sometimes the partnerships we create will go well beyond just putting the advertising during a television program or a streaming program to integrate the products into the shows that you appreciated or noticed it in some way. And again, it's all reinforcing what we hope is a very positive image about the brand that we're working for and that we're hoping to get you to notice. And then as the advertising runs, there's a whole amount of analytics and data science and systems and tools that allow us to measure as it's going on how a lot of the audience is receiving the advertising and whether it's actually moving your perception of the brand. We're constantly measuring people's brand perception, or whether it's actually encouraging you to buy the product. And we're doing all of that analytics on the back end as well. So that was a very long story, but was meant to give you a sense of what in the world of advertising does a media agency do. That's what a media agency does.